The last thing I heard was Buddy's whimper before the silence. They shattered my back door, grabbed him, and threw me down the basement steps. I am blind, but I felt the cold concrete, heard the lock click, and knew they left me to die. I survived 2 days on a forgotten bottle of water and old crackers until my neighbour, Helen, heard my weak knocking. Now I lie in this hospital bed, pretending to be more broken than I am. My son Mark and his wife Lisa just left after another visit filled with false concern. "Mum, you can't live alone anymore," Mark said, his voice too smooth. "We've found a wonderful assisted living facility. The papers are almost ready." I smiled faintly and nodded, but inside I remembered one robber's voice, a low growl I'd heard before at Mark's barbecue last summer. The nurse adjusting my IV caught my eye, her touch gentle. "You need anything, dear?" she whispered. I shook my head, but my mind raced. That voice belonged to Mark's friend, Joe. They think I'm helpless, but I have ears that work perfectly. When the night shift nurse steps out, I will ask her to borrow a phone. My first call won't be to the police. It will be to a lawyer. I need to know who really owns my house now. I am back in my kitchen, the air still smelling of forced entry and fear. Helen helped me home, her arm linked with mine. "You sure you're okay alone, Martha?" she asked. I assured her I was fine, but I knew what I had to do. Find proof that Mark arranged the robbery. I've lost my peace. Every creak of the house makes me jump, and Buddy's absence is a physical ache. This morning, Lisa dropped by with a casserole and a new urgency. "Signing the power of attorney will make things easier, Martha," she insisted, placing the documents on the table. I pretended to fumble with my glasses, buying time. After she left, I ran my fingers over the papers, feeling the crisp edges. Then, I remembered the basement. I descended slowly, each step a memory of terror. In the corner, under an old rug, I felt a small metallic object, a keychain with initials JT Joe Thompson, Mark's friend. My heart pounded. This wasn't random. I slipped the keychain into my pocket. Now I must act before they force me out. I need to see my bank statements. Something tells me my accounts have already been touched. The bank manager, Mr. Evans, led me to a quiet office, his voice patient. "Mrs. Wilkins, how can I help you today?" I explained I wanted to review recent transactions, my hands trembling slightly. He typed on his computer, and the printer hummed. As he handed me the papers, I felt the weight of the truth. Large withdrawals I never made, transfers to an account I didn't recognize. This knowledge brings a crushing betrayal. My own son is stealing from me. Just then, my phone buzzed, a text from Mark. "Mum, heard you went to the bank? Everything okay?" How did he know? Pressure is mounting. I thanked Mr. Evans and left, clutching the statements. Outside, the sun felt too bright. I paused by a bench, listening to the traffic. A woman sat beside me, her perfume familiar, Lisa's scent. "Martha, what a surprise," she said, her tone tight. "Let me give you a ride home." I declined, saying I needed air. But as she walked away, I realized she must have followed me. My next move must be swift. I will visit Joe Thompson's workplace. If he talks, I can connect him to Mark. Joe works at an auto repair shop on Elm Street. I took a taxi there, the driver guiding me to the entrance. The smell of grease and gasoline filled the air. I asked for Joe, and a young voice directed me to the back. "Joe?" "Yeah, he's off today. Family emergency," the kid said. My intention to confront him faded, but then I heard Mark's voice from a nearby office. "Just keep quiet, and she'll be in the home by Friday," he muttered, probably on the phone. I stood frozen, Hearing this made the last shred of hope for my son vanish. Pressure squeezed my chest. If they see me, I'm finished. I turned to leave, but my cane tapped a toolbox, clattering loudly. Mark rushed out. "Mom, what are you doing here?" he demanded, grabbing my arm too tightly. I pulled away, feigning confusion. "I must have gotten lost," I mumbled. He escorted me out, his grip firm. As he drove me home, silence hung between us, but I memorized every word he'd said. Now I know their deadline. Friday. I have 3 days to stop them. My lawyer appointment is tomorrow. I will not sign anything. The lawyer's office was calm, the leather chair cool against my skin. "Mrs. Wilkins, based on what you've told me, we can revoke any existing powers of attorney and freeze your assets," Mr. Gable said, his voice steady. I felt a flicker of relief, but I faced a legal battle ahead, money and time I don't have to waste. I need to secure my home and funds before Friday. As we discussed options, my phone rang. It was Lisa. "Martha, the social worker is coming today to assess you. Be ready," she said, her tone clipped. Pressure is closing in from all sides. After the call, Mr. Gable suggested I stay with a friend until things settle. I agreed. But first, I need to retrieve something from home. Helen drove me back, and while she waited in the car, I felt my way to the bedroom. In my jewelry box, under the false bottom, I keep a USB drive with all my important documents backups. But when I reached for it, the box was empty. Someone had been here. My hands shook. They're one step ahead. I have to move faster. Tonight, I will stay with Helen and plan my next strike. The social worker's visit could be my undoing, or my opportunity. The social worker arrived precisely at 10, her perfume cutting through the smell of Helen's tea. "Mrs. Wilkins, I'm Sarah from Adult Protective Services. We need to discuss your living situation," she said, her voice professionally kind. I had to pass this assessment and prove my competence. If I failed, I would be sent to that facility, losing my home and freedom. Lisa sat beside me, a silent predator. "As you can see, Martha gets confused," Lisa interjected smoothly. "Just last week, she wandered into a mechanic's shop." Pressure tightened around me. But then, as Sarah asked me to describe my daily routine, I detailed my precise budgeting and my weekly calls to Helen, my voice steady. During a moment when Lisa went to the bathroom, Sarah leaned closer. "Your daughter-in-law seems very involved," she murmured, her tone shifting. I simply nodded. After the visit, Sarah handed me her card. "Call me if you feel pressured, Martha." The moment she left, Lisa's phone buzzed. She listened, then smiled at me. "Good news. They've moved your transfer to tomorrow. Everything is settled." I kept my face calm, but my mind screamed. They've accelerated their plan. I have less than a day. I stood in Helen's guest room, the lawyer's words echoing in my mind. "The revocation of power of attorney is filed, but it takes 48 hours to process," Mr. Gable had said. I am racing against a clock that ticks too fast. My independence hangs by a thread, and the emotional toll is a constant, cold weight. Mark called Helen's landline, his voice booming through the speaker. "Tell Mom to pack her bags. We're picking her up at 9 a.m. The pressure is immense and immediate. I needed to find another lever, something to delay them. I remembered Joe's keychain and his ex-wife, Carol, who always disliked Mark. Helen helped me find her number. I called, my heart pounding. "Carol, this is Martha Wilkins. I think your ex-husband and my son are involved in something terrible." There was a long silence. Then she said, "Joe's been bragging about a big payoff. He mentioned a storage unit number 114 on the east side." This was the break I needed. But as I hung up, Helen looked out the window. "Martha, a car just pulled up. It's Mark. He's here a day early." Mark knocked on the door, his fist heavy and insistent. "Mom, I know you're in there. Open up." Helen gripped my arm, her whisper frantic. "What do we do?" I had to avoid being taken, to hold out until the legal papers took effect. Opening that door would mean losing my freedom. The pressure of his pounding rattled the windows. I told Helen to call the police and report a disturbance. She did, her voice shaking. I then called Mr. Gable on my cell, putting him on speaker. "They're here early," I whispered. "Stay on the line," he said. I moved to the door. "Mark, I'm not going with you. My lawyer is listening." The pounding stopped. "You're being irrational, Mum. This is for your own good," he said, but his voice was tighter, strained. Then I heard another voice. "Joe. Just get her, Mark. We don't have all day." The police sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Mark cursed. "This isn't over," he snarled. Their car screeched away. I sank against the door, trembling. But Mr. Gable's voice came through the phone. "Martha, I just received an alert. Someone tried to access your safe deposit box at the bank. They are trying to grab what they can before tomorrow." The bank vault felt like a tomb, cold and silent. With Mr. Evans's help, I emptied my safe deposit box, the deed to my house, my insurance policies, and the old USB drive I'd hidden elsewhere. Securing these documents means protecting my last assets, but it feels like I'm burying my own life. This would lead to the utter dissolution of my family. There is no going back after this. As Mr. Evans escorted me out, he said, "Your son was here earlier with a woman. They had a document claiming power of attorney, but it was dated before your revocation. We turned them away." The pressure from Mark and Lisa is relentless, attacking on all fronts. I needed to see that storage unit. Helen drove me, her hands tight on the wheel. Unit 114 was a small, rusted door. I felt the lock. It was sturdy. But then Helen gasped. "Martha, that car! It's been following us." I turned my head, though I saw nothing. "Describe it," I said. "A blue sedan. Joe's car," she whispered. We drove away quickly, but I knew they were tracking us. My only advantage was the element of surprise, and now that is gone. We need the police to open that unit. But will they believe me? The police station buzzed with low voices and the smell of stale coffee. Officer Miller listened patiently as I laid out my story. The robbery, the keychain, the storage unit, the financial theft. I needed to get a search warrant for Unit 114 before Mark could empty it. Bureaucracy was wasting time I did not have. He took notes, but his tone was skeptical. "Without concrete proof, it's your word against your son's, Mrs. Wilkins." The pressure of the clock was suffocating. Mark could be clearing that unit right now. Then my phone rang. It was Carol, Joe's ex-wife. I put her on speaker. "Tell the officer what you told me, Carol," I said. Her voice was clear and angry. "Joe stole my jewelry last month. He pawned it, but he kept bragging about a bigger score with his buddy Mark. Something about a blind woman's house." Officer Miller was silent for a moment. "Give me the storage unit address," he said finally. He dispatched a car to secure the location. I felt a surge of hope. But as Helen and I left the station, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You shouldn't have done that, Mom. Now you leave me no choice." It was from Mark. The game has just turned deadly. Mark's text message burned in my mind, a digital threat that left me cold. I stood on the police station steps, Helen's arm steadying me. "We need to get to that storage unit before they do," I whispered, my voice tight. I needed to witness whatever evidence the police found, to link Mark directly to the robbery. My own safety was at stake. Every move now risked provoking him further. Officer Miller had already sent a car to secure Unit 114, but I felt an urgent need to be there myself. Helen drove, her knuckles white on the wheel. "They're probably watching us, Martha," she said, her eyes darting to the mirrors. As we approached the storage facility, I heard the crunch of gravel under tires and the distant sound of a police radio. Officer Miller met us at the gate. "We've got the unit open, but you should wait here," he advised. But I insisted, using my cane to feel my way forward. Inside the unit, the air was dusty and stale. I heard an officer shuffling through items. "There's tools here, some electronics, and a box of documents," he reported. Then he paused. "Mrs. Wilkins, there's a folder with your name on it. It's full of bank statements and a copy of your house deed." My heart sank. But then Helen gasped. "Martha, look, this receipt is for a kennel. Buddy was boarded here the day before the robbery." That meant they planned it, knowing my dog wouldn't be there to protect me. The betrayal cut deeper. As Officer Miller bagged the evidence, my phone buzzed again. It was Lisa. "Martha, if you don't drop this, we'll release a statement saying you have dementia and are a danger to yourself. No one will believe a word you say." I ended the call, my hand shaking. They're escalating to public shaming. I have to act fast, but now my credibility is on the line. Back at Helen's house, I spread the documents from the storage unit on her kitchen table, my fingers tracing the printed words I couldn't see. "We need to get these to Mr. Gable immediately," I said, my voice firm. I intended to use this evidence to file criminal charges against Mark and Joe, securing my home and finances permanently. This meant the final shred of my relationship with my son was gone. I was burying any chance of reconciliation. Helen helped me describe each paper. Withdrawal slips, emails between Mark and Joe planning the job, and even a sketch of my house's layout. The pressure mounted as my phone kept ringing. Unknown numbers, likely Mark or Lisa trying to intimidate me. Suddenly the doorbell chimed. Helen peeked through the window. "It's a delivery man with a package for you, Martha." I hadn't ordered anything. Suspicious, I told her not to open it. She brought it inside, and we called the police. Officer Miller returned, and he carefully opened the box. Inside was a stuffed animal, a dog that resembled Buddy, with a note. "Remember what happens to those who bark too much." The threat was clear, a psychological blow aimed at my weakest point. But then Helen noticed something odd. "The shipping label. It's from a print shop downtown. We can track who sent this." Officer Miller agreed to follow up. As he left, I realized this was a mistake on their part, a paper trail. But my relief was short-lived. Helen's landline rang, and when she answered, her face paled. "It's the assisted living facility. They say you're scheduled for admission tomorrow at dawn, and they're sending transport. They're trying to force me out before the legal system can stop them. I have to disappear until morning." I spent the night in a quiet motel room Helen booked under her name, the hum of the air conditioner masking my fears. I had to survive until my lawyer could present the evidence in court, preventing my forced admission. I lost my comfort and peace. Every sound made me jump, and I missed the familiarity of my own home. At dawn, I called Mr. Gable. "The hearing is set for today at 1 p.m., he said. "But Martha, Mark's lawyer is arguing you're incompetent based on Lisa's statement." I felt immense pressure. If the judge believed them, I'd lose everything. Helen arrived with coffee and a plan. "We'll go to the courthouse early and wait in a secure room," she suggested. As we prepared to leave, My phone vibrated with a news alert. A local article claiming I was senile and a burden on my family. Lisa had gone public, just as she threatened. My hands trembled, but I steadied myself. At the courthouse, the halls echoed with footsteps and murmurs. Mr. Gable met us, his voice low. "I've seen the evidence. It's strong. But we need you to testify clearly." Suddenly, Officer Miller approached. "We arrested Joe this morning. He's willing to talk in exchange for a deal." This was the break I needed. Joe's confession could implicate Mark directly. But as we entered the courtroom, I heard Mark's voice behind me. "Mum, this is your last chance to walk away with some dignity," he hissed. I ignored him, focusing on the judge's bench. The hearing began, and Mr. Gable presented the storage unit documents. Then, the bailiff announced a witness, Carol, Joe's ex-wife. She testified about Joe's boasts and Mark's involvement. The judge listened intently, but during a recess, Lisa cornered me in the restroom. "Sign over the house now, or I'll tell everyone you abused Mark as a child," she whispered, her breath hot on my ear. I pushed past her, but the threat hung in the air. They're digging into lies from the past. My testimony is next, and I must be perfect. On the witness stand, the wood felt hard beneath my hands, and the courtroom's silence was heavy. "Mrs. Wilkins, can you describe the events of the robbery?" the prosecutor asked. I spoke clearly, detailing the voices, the basement, the keychain, everything. I aimed to convince the judge of my competence and Mark's guilt. It meant laying bare my vulnerability and the betrayal by my own family. Mark's lawyer cross-examined me aggressively, trying to trip me up with dates and details, but I held firm. Then he played a recording, a clipped phone call where I sounded confused, asking Helen about the time repeatedly. "See? She's disoriented," he declared. Pressure squeezed my chest. They had edited the call to mislead, but Mr. Gable objected, and the judge allowed a full playback, which showed I was simply concerned about my lawyer appointment. Unexpectedly, Officer Miller was recalled. "We've verified the storage unit evidence and traced funds from your accounts to Mark's, Mrs. Wilkins," he stated. "And Joe has confessed to the robbery, naming Mark as the mastermind." A murmur swept the room. The judge ordered Mark's arrest on the spot. As officers led him away, he glared at me. "You'll regret this, Mom." He spat. I felt a hollow victory. My son was going to jail. But back in the hallway, Lisa was gone, and Helen hugged me tightly. "It's over, Martha," she said. But when I checked my phone, I had a voicemail from my bank. "There's been an attempt to withdraw a large sum using a forged signature. We've frozen the account, but you need to come in." Lisa must have tried one last grab. I thought the battle was won, but the war isn't over. At the bank, Mr. Evans guided me to his office, his tone grave. "Mrs. Wilkins, someone used a sophisticated forgery of your signature to try and empty your savings. We stopped it, but I recommend changing all your accounts." Now, I needed to secure every asset and ensure Lisa faced consequences too. It involved endless paperwork and the emotional exhaustion of fighting my own family. I spent the afternoon with Mr. Gable, updating my will and placing everything in a trust managed by him and Helen as co-trustees. This would protect me from future attempts. The tension eased slightly, but I knew Lisa was still out there, desperate. Helen drove me home, my real home, for the first time in days. The broken door was boarded up, and the silence without Buddy was deafening. As I felt my way through the rooms, I noticed something odd in the living room, a faint smell of Lisa's perfume. She must have been here recently. I called Officer Miller, and he sent a unit to sweep the house. They found nothing, but the unease lingered. That evening, as I sat in my armchair, the doorbell rang. Through the window, Helen described a woman in a suit, a reporter from the local paper. "I'd like to hear your side of the story, Mrs. Wilkins," she called out. I didn't answer, but I realized this was an opportunity. If I tell the truth, I can clear my name publicly. But as I considered it, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Talk to the press, and you'll wish you'd stayed in the basement." Lisa isn't giving up. I have to decide whether to fight in the open or hide in the shadows. The reporter's card felt flimsy in my hand, the raised print of her name, Amanda Gray, under my thumb. That text threat lingered in the air like a bad smell. I had to decide. Use the press to clear my name and risk Lisa's wrath, or stay silent and let her control the story. My reputation was the last thing they hadn't stolen, and I felt its loss like a physical emptiness. Helen argued for going public. "They can't hurt you if everyone knows the truth," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. The pressure was a vice. Every option seemed to have a hidden trap. I called Amanda Gray. We agreed to meet at a neutral cafe, a busy place with the clatter of dishes and low music. I brought Helen for eyes. Amanda's voice was young, earnest. "Tell me what happened, Mrs. Wilkins." I did, carefully, leaving out the location of the USB drive I'd secretly mailed to myself at Helen's. I gave her copies of the bank statements and the police report number. As we spoke, I heard the cafe door chime open and caught a whiff of sharp, familiar perfume. Lisa was here. She didn't approach, just sat at a distant table, a silent warning. Amanda, noticing my tension, followed my gaze. "Is there a problem?" she asked. "No," I said, but my voice was tight. I ended the interview soon after. As Helen guided me out, she whispered, "Lisa took a picture of us with her phone." Back home, I felt a cold dread. They knew I was fighting back publicly. That night, my landline rang. It was Lisa, her voice a venomous whisper. "The article comes out tomorrow. Retract your statement, or I'll release the photos of you looking confused and frail with that reporter. You'll look pathetic." She hung up. I stood in my dark living room, the hum of the refrigerator my only company. They wanted a war of images. I had one they didn't know about. I stood in Mr. Gable's office the next morning, the leather chair cool against my arms. "We need to get a restraining order against Lisa," I stated. I was determined to legally block her from contacting me or approaching my home, creating a barrier she couldn't cross without arrest. It meant making my family conflict a matter of public record, a final, sad severance. Mr. Gable typed efficiently. "Based on the threats and the attempted forgery, we have grounds." He filed the paperwork electronically. The pressure was immense. I knew Lisa would react violently to being cornered by the law. As we worked, my phone vibrated with a news alert. Amanda Gray's article was live. Helen, who was with me, read it aloud. It was fair, painting me as a victim of financial exploitation. But then she gasped. "Martha, the comments section. Someone named Truth Teller is posting lies about you being abusive and senile." It had to be Lisa. My hands clenched. We needed to move fast. The judge granted a temporary restraining order by noon. Officer Miller served it to Lisa at her apartment. Helen relayed the scene to me over the phone. She was furious, Martha, screaming that it was a lie. I should have felt safe, but I didn't. Later that day, a courier delivered a package to my door. Helen intercepted it. Inside was a framed photo of Buddy, the glass cracked across his face. There was no note. The message was clear. They could still reach me, legally or not. I ran my fingers over the broken glass, a sharp pain in my heart. But then I remembered the USB drive, safely in my possession now. It held more than documents. It had a voice recording I'd made of Mark, years ago, boasting about a different scheme. It was time to use it. The USB drive felt small and cold in my palm. I needed to use the recording to pressure Lisa into a full confession, to end this for good. Playing it meant exposing my own son's past corruption, a final, heartbreaking betrayal. I asked Helen to call Lisa and tell her I was willing to talk, to drop the restraining order if she came alone. It was a risk, a direct confrontation. Lisa arrived an hour later, her perfume announcing her before she spoke. "You wanted to talk, Martha?" she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. I sat in my armchair, the USB drive on the table between us. "I'm playing something for you, Lisa." I pressed play on the small recorder Helen had set up. Mark's voice filled the room, young and arrogant, talking about faking invoices to cheat his old employer. "They're so stupid. They'll never notice," he said on the recording. Lisa was silent for a long moment. Then she laughed, a harsh, brittle sound. "That's old news. No one cares." But her voice wavered. The pressure was working. I had shaken her. "I have more," I lied smoothly. "Emails? Photos? I'll send everything to the district attorney unless you confess to your part in this. All of it." She moved suddenly, and I heard her grab the USB drive. "You have nothing," she snarled. But I smiled. "That's a copy, Lisa. The original is safe." She threw the drive against the wall, the plastic cracking. "You blind witch," she hissed, and I heard her storm out, the door slamming shut. Helen came out from the kitchen. "She's scared, Martha." I nodded, but my heart was pounding. I had pushed her too far. What would a cornered animal do next? The silence after Lisa left was heavy and foreboding. I had to prepare for her next move, to fortify my home and my legal position. I was sacrificing the last remnants of peace, turning my home into a fortress. I called a locksmith to install a heavy-duty deadbolt and a security chain. Helen helped me clean, and as we did, I noticed something missing from my bookshelf. A small, carved box where I kept spare keys. It was gone. Lisa must have taken it during one of her earlier visits. The pressure was now a constant, low hum of anxiety. I needed to know what she planned to do with those keys. Mr. Gable called with an update. "Lisa's lawyer is contesting the restraining order, claiming you're harassing her. There's a hearing tomorrow." It was another battle, another drain on my energy and resources. That evening, as Helen and I ate a quiet dinner, my doorbell rang. It was Officer Miller. "Mrs. Wilkins, we just picked up Lisa for trespassing at your son's old workplace. She was trying to access his office, likely looking for something to use against you." This was a unexpected reprieve. She was in custody, at least for the night. But as the officer left, Helen looked out the window and froze. "Martha, the motion sensor light in your backyard just turned on. But there's no one there." Or there was someone standing very still. We locked all the doors and windows. I sat in the dark living room, listening. Then I heard it. A faint, metallic scraping at the back door. Someone was trying to use a key. They had the key from the stolen box. I held my breath, my hand gripping my cane. The scraping stopped. A moment later, my phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. "I don't need a key. I'll find another way in." I spent the night in Helen's spare room, unable to sleep. The text message played in my mind on a loop. I needed to end this, not just defend against it. I was determined to set a trap that would expose Lisa's criminal intent once and for all. It meant using myself as bait, a terrifying prospect. I risked losing my sense of security, perhaps permanently. In the morning, I called Mr. Gable and Officer Miller. I laid out my plan. I would announce I was returning home alone for the day, creating an opportunity for Lisa to act. They would have the house under surveillance. The pressure was immense. If Lisa didn't take the bait, I'd look paranoid. But if she did, I could be in real danger. I went home at noon. The house was quiet. I made a show of being there, moving around the kitchen, talking aloud to myself. Hours passed. The tension was a live wire. Then, I heard the soft click of the back door opening. The lock had been picked. Footsteps, light and careful, moved through the kitchen. I stood in the living room, facing the doorway. "I know you're here, Lisa," I said, my voice steady. She stopped. "You have something that belongs to me," she hissed. "The originals. Give them to me." I heard her step closer. "The police have them," I said. She laughed, a short, ugly sound. "I don't think so." I heard her open a drawer, the sound of metal shifting. She was looking for a weapon or for the evidence. This was the moment. "Now," I said loudly, a signal for the officers listening outside. But instead of the door crashing open, I heard a window slide up from the other room. She had an accomplice. Joe was out on bail. A hand grabbed my arm, rough and familiar. It was Joe. "Let's go for a ride, Grandma," he muttered. Lisa was already rushing out the back. The trap had failed. They had outsmarted me. As Joe pulled me toward the door, I knew I was in more danger than ever before. Joe's grip was like iron on my arm, pulling me toward the door. "Move it, old woman," he growled, his breath hot and sour. I had to break free before he got me into a car. Once I was in his vehicle, my chances would vanish. My safety and possibly my life were on the line, but I refused to go quietly. I dug my heels into the floor, my cane clattering to the ground. "The police are watching," I bluffed, hoping to startle him. He laughed, a harsh sound. "They're not here yet." But then, from outside, I heard a shout, Helen's voice. "Let her go, Joe!" she yelled. This interruption was exactly what I needed. Joe hesitated, his grip loosening for a second. I twisted my arm and brought my knee up, aiming for where I thought his groin might be. I connected with something soft, and he grunted in pain, releasing me. I stumbled back, grabbing my cane. But as I did, I heard a car engine roar to life outside. Lisa was in the driver's seat. "Get in!" she screamed at Joe. He recovered quickly and lunged for me again. I swung my cane blindly, hitting something solid. He cursed and backed off, rushing out the door. I was safe for the moment, but my heart was pounding. Helen rushed in, her hands shaking as she guided me to a chair. I called the police as soon as I saw them approach the house. "They're on their way," but Lisa and Joe got away in that car. I leaned against the wall, catching my breath. The familiar smell of my home was now tainted with fear and the scent of Joe's sweat. My phone, which had fallen during the struggle, buzzed on the floor. Helen picked it up. "Martha, it's a text from Lisa. This isn't over. I have one more card to play." What could she possibly have left? My mind raced through all the possibilities: the house, the money, my reputation. But then I remembered something Mark had once said in anger about a safety deposit box key he kept. Did Lisa have it? The police arrived minutes later, their voices calm and professional as they took my statement. I needed to find out what Lisa meant by her "one more card" and preempt whatever she was planning. This constant vigilance was exhausting. I felt older and wearier with each passing hour. Officer Miller assured me they would put out an APB for Lisa and Joe, but I knew they were slippery. I felt the tension return, a tight knot in my stomach. After the police left, Helen made tea, the warm mug a small comfort in my hands. "We should check if anything is missing," she suggested. We moved through the house, and I realized my jewelry box was still gone, but that was old news. Then, in the study, I felt along the desk drawer where I keep important papers. It was locked, but the key was in its usual spot. I opened it and rummaged through. Deeds, insurance, everything seemed intact. But then my fingers brushed against a small, cold metal object I didn't recognize. It was a key, but not one of mine. Helen described it. "It's a small silver key with the number 42 stamped on it." A safety deposit box key? Mark must have hidden it here. This was the break I needed. If Lisa had the matching box, she could access whatever was inside. But as I held the key, my phone rang. It was Mr. Gable. "Martha, I just received a call from the bank. Someone tried to access a safety deposit box under your name, but they didn't have the key. The manager stalled them, but they said they'd be back with proper ID." Lisa was making her move. I had to get to that box first. But how? I'm blind and can't drive. Helen volunteered to take me, but as we prepared to leave, my doorbell rang. Through the window, Helen described a woman in a formal suit, a social worker from the agency. "I'm here for a follow-up assessment, Mrs. Wilkins," the woman said. "Lisa must have sent her to delay me. Now I'm trapped between the social worker and the race to the bank." The social worker stood at my door, her posture rigid even though I couldn't see her. "I'm Ms. Albright from Adult Protective Services. We need to complete your assessment today," she said, her tone implying urgency. I had to get rid of her fast and get to the bank before Lisa did. Engaging with her meant wasting precious minutes, and every second brought Lisa closer to that box. I invited her in, my mind racing for a solution. Helen hovered nearby, her anxiety palpable. "Can we make this quick? I have a medical appointment." I lied smoothly. Ms. Albright clicked her pen. "This won't take long. I just have a few questions about your daily activities and mental state." She began asking about my medication, my meals, my mobility. I answered tersely, all the while thinking about that key in my pocket. The tension was immense. I could almost feel Lisa at the bank. Then, I had an idea. I feigned a dizzy spell, leaning heavily on my cane. "I'm sorry. I need to sit down," I mumbled, stumbling toward the kitchen. Helen caught me, playing along. "She hasn't been well since the incident," she told Ms. Albright. The social worker's tone shifted to concern. "Perhaps we should reschedule when you're feeling better." But I knew she was just following protocol. As she gathered her things, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Amanda Gray, the reporter. "Lisa just contacted me, claiming you have dementia and are hiding assets. I'm running a follow-up story unless you comment." Lisa was attacking on multiple fronts. I ended the call with Ms. Albright, who agreed to return next week. Helen and I rushed to the car, but as we pulled out of the driveway, Helen gasped. "Martha, that blue sedan, it's following us." Joe's car. They weren't at the bank. They were following me. My plan to beat them there was futile. Now I was leading them directly to the prize. Helen's hands were tight on the wheel as she drove, her eyes flicking to the rearview mirror. "They're still there. 2 cars back," she whispered. I had to lose them before we reached the bank. If they followed us inside, they could cause a scene or worse. This cat-and-mouse game was fraying my nerves, and I hated putting Helen in danger. Take a detour through the park, I instructed, remembering the winding roads there. Helen obeyed, turning sharply. The tension grew as the blue sedan matched our moves, staying close. I called Officer Miller on speakerphone. We're being followed by Joe and possibly Lisa. We're headed to the bank on Main Street. He said he'd send a patrol car to intercept, but it would take time. As we navigated the park's narrow lanes, Helen suddenly swerved. "A trash truck is blocking the road," she exclaimed. This was our chance. She pulled into a side street behind some bushes, killing the engine. We waited, listening. The blue sedan sped past, not seeing us. My heart hammered in my chest. After a minute, Helen started the car, and we took an alternate route to the bank. We arrived within minutes, the grand building looming ahead. Helen helped me out, and we hurried inside. Mr. Evans, the bank manager, greeted us anxiously. "Mrs. Wilkins, I'm glad you're here. That woman was here earlier, but she left when she couldn't produce the key." We were safe for now. I handed him the key. "I need to access box 42, I said. He led us to the vault, but as he inserted the key, his face fell. "It's already open," he said, confusion in his voice. The box was empty. Lisa must have had a duplicate key or picked the lock. She had beaten us to it. What was in that box? And what would she do with it? The empty safety deposit box felt like a punch to the gut. "What was in it?" I asked Mr. Evans, my voice trembling. He checked the records. "It was rented under your name, Mrs. Wilkins, but the contents aren't listed. However, the last access was this morning by a woman matching Lisa's description. She had taken whatever was inside, and I had no idea what it was. I needed to find out what she stole and how to get it back before she used it against me. This loss made me feel vulnerable in a new way. She had outmaneuvered me again. Helen guided me out of the bank, her arm supportive. What could she have taken? She wondered aloud. I racked my brain, then remembered Mark once mentioning he kept a insurance policy, documents that could incriminate him in past schemes, but also something about me. Was it something he had on me? The tension was overwhelming. Back in the car, I called Mr. Gable. Lisa accessed a safety deposit box in my name and took the contents. We need to find out what it was. He promised to look into it. As we drove home, my phone rang. It was Carol, Joe's ex-wife. "Martha, I heard from a friend that Joe was bragging about having something big on you. Something about an old loan document you signed for Mark. Something that makes you liable for his debts." My blood ran cold. Years ago, I co-signed a loan for Mark's business, which failed. If Lisa had that document, she could claim I owed money and seize my assets. This was her final card. But then Carol added, "But Joe said it's not the original. He has a copy, and the original is with Mark's lawyer. There might be a way to dispute it." But as I processed this, Helen pulled into my driveway. "Martha, your front door is wide open." We had left it locked. Someone had been inside again. And this time, they left a message. A single, dead rose on my doorstep. The symbolism was clear. It was over, or so they thought. But for me, it was just beginning. The dead rose crumbled under my shoe as I stepped inside, its dry petals scattering on the floor. My front door swung open, a silent invasion that made my skin crawl. Lisa's message was clear. She thought she had won. But I had until the bank opened tomorrow to stop her from using that loan document against me. I needed to find proof that the document was forged or invalid, to protect my home from being seized. This search meant diving back into painful memories of trusting Mark, a betrayal that cut deeper with each recall. Helen called Officer Miller, who arrived quickly and dusted for fingerprints. It was likely Lisa or Joe, but without witnesses, it's hard to prove, he said, his voice grim. The pressure mounted as I imagined Lisa filing a claim first thing in the morning. Then, my phone rang. It was Mr. Gable. "Martha, I found something in Mark's old files. The loan you co-signed had a clause. If the business failed, the debt would be void if not claimed within 5 years. That time passed last month." This changed everything. The document might be useless. But as relief washed over me, Helen gasped. "Martha, my purse is gone. It was on the table when we left." Lisa must have taken it during the break-in. My hands trembled. Helen's ID and credit cards were in there, and now she was involved in this mess. We had to cancel everything, but more urgently, Lisa had Helen's address. She could target her next. I sat at Helen's kitchen table, the scent of fresh coffee doing little to calm my nerves. Helen had already called her bank to report the stolen purse, but we both knew the real danger was Lisa having her home address. I intended to set up a security system at Helen's house today to keep her safe from retaliation. Doing this dragged my best friend deeper into my family's chaos, and I felt a heavy guilt for that. Mr. Gable called with an update. "I've sent a letter to Lisa's lawyer, stating the loan is unenforceable, but she might ignore it and proceed anyway." The pressure was relentless. Lisa hadn't responded, and her silence was ominous. A security company arrived within the hour, installing cameras and alarms. As they worked, I remembered something Mark once said about keeping duplicates of important papers in a fireproof box at his old office. But his office was closed since his arrest. Then Helen's landline rang. It was Carol. "I heard Joe talking about a meeting tonight at the old warehouse district. Lisa is supposed to hand over something to a collector. Maybe your documents." This was our chance to intercept them. But going there was risky, especially after dark. Helen insisted on driving, but I feared for her safety. As we debated, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Stay out of it, or your friend gets hurt." They knew we were planning something. Now we had to decide: back down or take the risk. The warehouse district was quiet, the air cool and smelling of damp concrete. Helen parked a block away, her hands shaking on the wheel. "We should wait for the police," she whispered. But I needed to see what Lisa was selling or destroying to recover any evidence against her. This confrontation could end in disaster, and I was risking Helen's well-being for my own battle. We sat in silence for what felt like hours. Then, headlights pierced the darkness. A car pulled into a nearby lot. I heard doors slam and voices, Lisa and Joe arguing. "Just give him the papers and let's go," Joe said, impatient. "Not until I get the cash," Lisa snapped. Suddenly, another car approached, its engine low and smooth. A new voice, calm and authoritative, spoke. "I have the money. Where are the documents?" This was the collector. My heart raced. If they exchanged the loan paper, it could still cause trouble, even if unenforceable. But then, Officer Miller's voice echoed through a megaphone. "This is the police. Everyone freeze." Lights flooded the area. Lisa screamed, and I heard footsteps running. Helen gripped my arm. "They're scattering!" Chaos erupted, but in the confusion, a hand grabbed my door handle. It was Joe, his face contorted with rage. "You led them here," he snarled, pulling me out of the car. I stumbled, falling to the ground. Helen shouted for help, but Joe was already dragging me away. The police were distracted, and Lisa was escaping. I was in his grip again, and this time there was no one to stop him. Joe's arm was like a vice around my waist as he half dragged me toward a rusty van. "You're coming with me, old lady," he grunted, his breath hot on my neck. I had to break free before he got me inside, or I might not see daylight again. Struggling meant risking injury, but surrender wasn't an option. I kicked backward, aiming for his shins, and connected hard. He yelped and loosened his grip for a second. That was all I needed. I dropped my weight, slipping from his grasp, and scrambled away on my hands and knees. "Over here!" Helen yelled, and I heard police footsteps pounding closer. Joe cursed and sprinted toward the van, but officers tackled him to the ground. The sound of handcuffs clicking shut was a sweet relief. Officer Miller helped me up. "We got him, Martha. And we have Lisa in custody too. She was trying to drive away." They had arrested both of them, and the collector was detained for questioning. Back at the police station, I gave my statement, my body aching, but my mind clear. Mr. Gable arrived, a smile in his voice. The documents were recovered, and with Joe's confession, we have enough to charge Lisa with extortion, theft, and coercion. It seemed over, but as I sat in the waiting room, a nurse checked my scrapes and noted my exhaustion. "You need rest, Mrs. Wilkins," she said gently. But when I called Helen to take me home, her phone went straight to voicemail. A cold dread settled in my stomach. Where was she? I found Helen sitting on her porch steps when I arrived home, the morning sun warm on my face. She was safe, just tired from the long night. "I needed a moment alone," she explained, her voice weary but calm. The police had returned her stolen purse, and the threats were finally over. With Lisa and Joe in jail, and Mark facing his own charges, I could reclaim my life. I spent the next days slowly restoring my home, hiring a carpenter to fix the broken door, and a cleaner to erase the memories of invasion. Helen helped me choose a new dog, a gentle rescue named Hope, whose soft presence filled the silence Buddy left behind. I met with Mr. Gable to finalize my affairs, ensuring my will and trust were secure. One afternoon, I sat in my garden, the scent of blooming flowers around me, and realized the fear had faded. I wasn't victorious, just at peace. The family I thought I had was gone, but in its place was a quiet strength I'd forgotten I possessed. Helen joined me for tea, and we talked about nothing important, the ordinary words a balm. I knew there would be no grand apologies or reconciliations, and that was all right. Some battles end not with a bang, but with a slow, steady return to light. And for now, that was enough.